Welcome into the DGD Podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds. Got a special guest tonight, guys. If you didn't know, we're talking way too early leading up to the Orange Bowl. And that means it's Georgia and Florida State. Got Matt LaSerre. Hopefully I said that right. Matt LaSerre. Is it LaSerre or LaSerre? LaSerre. I'm terrible at this.
You're good.
But no, so from warchant.com, that's the on three for the Seminoles. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you. Good to be on.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to talking about this, right? I think, talking a little bit beforehand. Two teams that are pretty pissed off to be here.
Yep.
And I think we'll start it here. Let's do this. Overall, what are the vibes around Knowles, whether it be the team, whether it be the fans? What's the overall pulse there?
So I think the fans can't speak much for the team right now because we haven't been able to go to practice at all since the ACC championship. So we haven't really gotten to see anything. The only thing I've seen is the same press conference you guys saw with Kirby and Norvell. But I think the fan base wise, everyone's still kind of recovering. It's kind of if you're thinking about it like a breakup, right? You go through the sad phase, and now I feel like everyone's starting to get into the angry phase. College game day just announced for our game in Ireland. That's going to be awful. And then you go to it's starting to get to that everyone's just still pissed off kind of thing. It's not the moping anymore like it was like Sunday. Like I can tell you, I was driving back to Tallahassee from Charlotte on Sunday watching the selection show, and it was within the first hour we watched it. I didn't talk the rest of the drive. It wasn't great.
Yeah, see, it's a little bit different because both of us feel like we can make a case to be in the 14 playoff. However, Florida State did not lose a game yet, right? You lose Jordan Travis, and that apparently is enough to sit an undefeated Power 5 team out. Georgia lost, but at the same time, it's crazy, going from number 1 to number 6, right? It's just both teams experience first in the playoff era, which leads us to where we are right now. But
also, when you kind of do look at it, it's like Florida State's in a weird spot. If you think we're bad because we don't have Jordan Travis, put us below Georgia. Like that's a weird spot to be in to where you guys lost by what, 3 to Alabama?
Yeah, we lost 27-24.
Yeah.
In Atlanta. Yeah.
So you're basically saying we're worse than Alabama, but better than Georgia with less than a 3-point margin. Like that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in general.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing.
Yeah. No.
Matt, if you believe me there. No, I will say this, right? I think, Florida State, just from a third-party perspective, did look totally different, right, without Jordan Travis, and I think that's rightfully so. I think Jordan Travis was the guy. However, I feel like you shouldn't necessarily punish a team for winning with a backup either, right? Third string for that matter too. I know I'm not going to compare it too much. You look back at Ohio State with playing the third string, so things can happen. Right. But I think at the same time, and this is partially our doing, Matt, I'm going to see if you tie the knot here. What Georgia did to TCU last year, I think had a part in this. Even with their starting quarterback, the fact that they saw the blowout happen, for what it's worth, my theory believes that it's all about the money.
Oh, I think everyone at FSU thinks the exact same. I'm not I don't think anyone's denying that. I mean, it's a weird situation. The whole thing just doesn't make any sense. That's like I said. I mean, Booger McFarland. Everyone in Tallahassee. Booger McFarland is now Tallahassee's favorite person.
Oh yeah.
He was. I was at the state championship games for Florida high schools this past weekend, and he was on the sideline for I believe it was Berkeley Prep versus Miami Norland, and Norland has 15 D1 players or something like that. And Berkeley Prep won the game. And Booger was on the side of Berkeley Prep. And he was tweeting, this is why the game's played on grass. This is why we're not doing this in a boardroom. Again, good. Love Booger now.
Yeah, no, I think, you have advocates. And I think you look at it this way. And Georgia's had their advocates too, even after the loss, right? I think one that stuck out to me was Colin Cowherd. I don't know if you heard that comment.
I haven't.
So he went on a tangent about a travesty or whatever, and ultimately threw shade at Florida State and was just like, if anybody is the travesty, it's Georgia because Now, he brought up 29 straight games and this and that, and I understand where he's coming from, but I also understand the counterpoint of it's this year, not 29 games. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, as a Georgia fan, I want to lean toward the 29 just because, but I'm like, it's just one of those things where, both teams are in here, and it's weird, Matt. I haven't even heard any chirping back and forth. I don't even think there's I know it's way too early, but even from fan base to fan base, I don't feel like there's a lot of chatter and chirping back and forth.
And even with these fan bases, it's weird, right? Because, it's like these are two – look, if you're the college football playoff with those 4 teams, you were pissing off somebody no matter what. And those are those fan bases. But to not see any chatter or anything yet is weird because it's just Florida State fans are very passionate. The fact that we're back now, they're back in full force. And Georgia fans have been that way. Like, I see like Instagram reels, TikToks about Georgia fans barking at people. I've never been to a Georgia game. I've never seen it, but about just fans just barking at people, and everyone talks about that. Like
that's the truth. That's the truth. See, my thing is this: if you have little subtle jabs, right? People get, people look at us and like, why do you bark at people? But at the same time, I've heard some Georgia fans like, oh, you're just doing something the Braves did, even though technically, even though y'all had it first. But it's just something funny, some funny banter. But no, it's just weird, man. Kind of thing for me is with Jordan Travis being out. Maybe this is me. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. If anybody in the chat wants to say anything, feel free. But I feel like Georgia is in this damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because hypothetically, right, not having Jordan Travis there, if you win, well, you beat the backup. Good for you. If you lose, you lost to the backup. We had that same situation that happened against Cincinnati. I don't know if you remember that game. But it feels that way, right? And I think the dynamic of not having Jordan Travis is, probably played a part there. However, if y'all have Jordan Travis, you're in the playoffs right now. But I digress.
And even Florida State's not in they're not far off in the spot. Like if we win, it's they should have been in, whatever. Like all that whole thing comes up. If it's close, they probably don't say that. But if they lose, it's up. See, the committee was right. All this kind of stuff. Like it's not I don't think it's a win-win situation for either team.
Yeah, ultimately, I get the committee had to piss some people off. Yeah. Typically they've had chaos bail them out, but not this year, the way that it needed to be. So you're going to piss somebody off. It is what it is at this point for me. I know, like I just said, we lost, so it's out of our control. But no, I think another thing, right? Playing it in Miami, right? It's kind of it's a lot closer to y'all, I believe.
Yeah.
Even though Tallahassee you got a bunch of South Georgia presence there too.
Yeah, we do.
It's kind of interesting because we're actually, well, I say we, but Florida and Tallahassee and South Georgia and stuff, pretty close because you're 45 minutes, 30 minutes from the border or something like that. I think.
Yeah, Colquitt County, where Landon Thomas is from, is like an hour, not even.
Yeah, so you're looking at it pretty close, but you're going to Miami. It's basically still a nice little regional game for us, for both, I guess. But it's just, I don't know. You sit there, you think about it. Do you think from now up until this game that there's going to be any hype? Because right now, I guess we just talked about it. For right now, it's kind of lackluster. I would like to think that you get some hype as we move forward. But at the same time, I think opt-outs can play a part and who's coming to play in the game and stuff. So I guess what leads me to that question too is so far, I think, was it Johnny Wilson?
Yep, just Johnny so far.
Just Johnny's the only opt-outs, which is good, right? If you're looking for someone that wants to watch this game and enjoy the game. But it's college football, modern day. You're going to see this.
Yep.
Right? I think you're going to see some opt-outs. I know you're not going to say that they're going to opt out, so I don't want you to put words in anybody's mouth. What are your feelings in regards to that way too early? Who do you think could opt out? Who do you think some notable names? I think you're probably watching at least.
Yeah, there's the obvious like Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, Jared Verse. All those are obvious. I thought Keon was going to be the first one. I was surprised that he wasn't because it just. He put out the Instagram post first of thank you for this 1 year, all this kind of stuff. And to me, it kind of felt like an opt-out, or at least prepping for one, but it still hasn't come. Johnny Wilson, obviously, is the only one who's done it, but we've also played, I believe it's 3 games without him so far due to injury, and obviously we won those games. You have Keon Coleman, you have good weapons to back him up if it's just Johnny Wilson.
Yeah.
But obviously expected is Keon Coleman, Jared Verse, Trey Benson. You got all these guys that are expected. It's just very surprising that no one else has done it yet.
Yeah,
I think like Johnny would be the first domino, but it just hasn't happened yet, which is weird. It's been almost a week.
Yeah, see, for Georgia, man, like you look at this situation right here, and for obviously you've had guys going across the country, right? Whether it be award ceremonies of different various awards and stuff, but like some of our Georgia's key contributors have already or were expected to play. I mean, I'm hearing like Carson Beck and Kendall Milton, Dejan Tate, Tyke Smith, right? Nazir Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, stuff like that. Names like that. Right? Major names, right? Obviously, I didn't list Brock Bowers. I didn't list Elias McConkey. Don't really know yet, right? They've been getting awards and stuff. But I guess for me, it leaves this feeling that guys might stick around to prove a point. Now, at the same time, we don't necessarily know, but as each day goes on, you start to lean that way, right? I think it's very possible. I think Florida State's got something to prove. I mean, considering
definitely.
I could definitely say I think that would make for a way better game. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, no brainer to make for a better game. I mean, we talked a little bit before this. I think it's just, again, both teams I feel like are pissed off, have something to prove. They feel like they should have been in. I think I tweeted this out, I think a day or two, maybe at the end of the day last Sunday. People were saying boycott the Orange Bowl, that kind of stuff. And like, it makes sense, right? Like, screw the system. It screwed us. Don't play. But that's also very out of character for this team, or at least I feel it's very out of character for this team, because you've had so much adversity throughout the year. Exhibit A, Jordan Travis getting injured, that the team still fights. No one quit. The team still had the same goal or same motivation every day, even without Jordan Travis there. So why wouldn't you have that same main goal when it's just a bowl game? I mean, the Orange Bowl gets downplayed now, but it's still a pretty big bowl game. Like, I mean, 10 years ago, this was huge.
Well, I mean, it's part of the New Year's. I mean, obviously it's part of the rotation. I mean, this year it's not your playoff, but it will be next year, right?
Yep.
I mean, hell, when we played Michigan, we played in the Orange Bowl, right? So this is not unfamiliar territory for Georgia fans, right? Now it's not the playoff game, which again, I feel like Georgia fans have to temper some expectations here, and the reason why I say that is you win 29 straight, right? It's awesome. But you expect at some point you got to take a loss, man. Yeah. But it's one of these things. I've heard some guys talking about current players. They don't know what it feels like to lose. And I think that's another thing that could be keeping these guys to play, right? Make the game meaningful by less opt-outs, right? You hear it all too much around this time, right? You've got guys opting out left and right, different bowl games. Portals. We'll talk about the portal for a second in a little bit, but I think it makes this game more meaningful, right? Obviously, barring the circumstances right on Florida State's side. I heard this and I kind of understand it too. I forgot who it was, but basically we're saying that it's not, just because you lose Jordan Travis, there's, 84 other guys, right? More than that too, but you go to me. Just because you lost him, again, like, you go and you play games with the second string quarterback, third string quarterback. You beat Florida. Listen, we're both going to do this. Florida's not good, right? Florida's not good. I'm gonna stay PG right now. I'm just gonna let you know that. But I have my thoughts that are non. But yeah, I mean, so you go on the road and you play them and you win. That regardless of that's the swamp, right? Backup quarterback or not. And then you have the third string quarterback and you beat Louisville, right? You can't take that away. And I watched that game just to see. Listen, I wanted to see Florida lose, and I'm glad y'all pulled through. I'm glad Florida State pulled through on that, right? We can agree on that note there. But with the Rodemaker as a backup. Yeah. So I didn't really get enough sample size, right? So I want to get your insight on this. What does he bring to the offense that Jordan Travis obviously? With Jordan Travis being out, what does he bring? Does he bring a different dynamic, or is it some of the same?
I mean, I think you'll see him sit in the pocket more. Jordan Travis didn't run as much this year as he normally did in previous years, but he's more Tate. You got to look at more as someone who'll sit in the pocket and look for, an open read or something. What we've seen so far is he kind of sits there too long and won't get rid of the ball. You saw that there was one play against Florida where he threw it. It was a screen play, and the guy was completely covered. It should have been picked. Probably should have been picked, but the UF guy wasn't looking.
Yeah,
he got lucky.
Typical.
Yeah. Hey man, spitting and all that.
By the way, that's a different story, but yeah.
But also like, don't be surprised when he runs. He is fast. I've seen him run. He's very fast. He just doesn't. That's not his first choice. He's also a lot quieter than Jordan is leadership wise. Jordan was throughout his career, he wasn't, but as this got to this last year, you saw it differently when he talked to the media and stuff like that. He was more mature, was more willing to lead, was like, okay, I knew he needed to be the example and knew he was the driving force for this team. Tate's more of a I show you by how I ball kind of person. Like he just kind of shows up and goes out there. If a coach, Jaheim Bell said this leading up to the ACC championship game. Leading up to the UF game was like a coach will yell at him straight up, chew him out, and he won't say anything. He'll nod his head and he'll go out and he'll ball. Like that's just the kind of person he is.
It's always it's a good dynamic to have. I think you said the running quarterback, maybe not as much, but that's something Georgia's been struggling with this year.
Yep.
So I think that'll pose something interesting there to watch. Speaking, I guess, are there any injuries wise that Georgia fans need to keep up with? I know you mentioned Jaheim Bell. I think he's healthy and everything.
Yep. I mean, as of right now, everything seems fine. The team clearly was banged up throughout the year. Keon Coleman was out for the Pitt game. Johnny Wilson was out for 3 games. It's just been here and there bumps and bruises. There hasn't been really anything major. Like, obviously, you have Jordan Travis. That's major. But nothing really –
correct, yeah.
Yeah, nothing really like that. Like, there's been 1 weeks here and there where someone will be out, but nothing major. The offensive line was a little banged up. If you guys don't know this name, Darius Washington, who is an O-lineman at FSU, he plays all over the line. The center goes down, he goes into center. Tackle goes down, he's in tackle. He's played, I think, every single position on the offensive line this year. He's been a huge piece. Outside of that, nothing really. I mean, I'm expecting them to be fairly healthy outside of Jordan Travis once you come into this game if there's no opt-outs, just because nothing has been major, right? It's just been bumps and bruises. You're clearly banged up, and we get it, but they've been playing through it.
Now you take the time to get better. Yeah.
Yep.
I think obviously with Georgia's side here too, I think for the most part we did get healthier. I think there was some, right, like the Bowers and the Ladd situation, but at the same time we're still kind of waiting for their, are they going to play? Are they not? I guess at that point, but for what it's worth, I think you look at most of the folks are, like you said, same situation. Nothing too major, right? Yeah. But I guess that's a good time to transfer over to the portal, right? But I do want to read some comments first. Panama Jack says it would be a more enjoyable game to watch with minimum players opting out. For Florida State, we need everybody on defense in this game to make it competitive. I think that will be interesting, and I think Panama's got a good point there because Georgia's offense, right? Carson Beck, first-year starter, ultimately, looks, right, the optics of it and the stats are two different things here. Same amount of points, roughly. 3,700 plus yards passing. Carson Beck, not a lot of turnovers, 4 or 5 turnovers, I think it was, to 30-plus touchdowns. Very efficient offense, right, from our perspective, right? But on your defense, I've watched Florida State's defense, and they do get after the passer. Right, they do rush the pass. Are there any? I guess to Panama's question or comment, I should say. Do you think Florida State's defense has the depth? I guess to keep it competitive. And the reason why I asked that question is because typically Georgia they push to wear you out and test your depth. Right, that's just what Georgia's MO is at this point. Yep. So I wanted to ask that question in regards to Panama's comment.
Yeah, so I think if you look, where the depth really matters, we're wearing down is the trenches, right? So you go to the defensive line. This defensive line has been very good, especially at rotating. So obviously a Verse, that's the big one. Everyone knows him. Hopefully your tackles are good, or else he might, for the third straight game, run the tackle into the quarterback. He's done that against UF and then did it against Louisville. But then you got Peyton on the other side, who is actually like, I can't remember if he's leading the team or if he's like second or third on team in PBUs. So he'll rush the quarterback, and he knows how to get his hands up there to block the passing lanes, and he's very good. He did intend or tweet that he was intending to enter the portal, but hasn't officially yet. So, and that was a week ago, so we don't know. That's kind of in limbo right now, but as of now, he's still with the team, I guess. But he is very good. And then as you get to the depth on the edge, you have Gilbert Edmond, who's a transfer from South Carolina. Hasn't done a whole lot this year, but he's been good in times of need, and same with Byron Turner, who's the other backup there. The interior line is where you really have a lot of good depth because you have Josh Farmer, who's been very good, and they've been very good at rotating these guys too. Norvell even said at a press conference early in the year that he did an off-season study saying that, well, if we rotate the lines, we do better, and there's a lot more first-round picks in these stats of looking at who was rotated in and out rather than playing the whole game. So you got Josh Farmer, who's very good. Then you got Fabian Lovett. Fabian Lovett obviously he's been a staple in this defense for a few years now. He was one of the stars. I feel like that's kind of trailed off a little bit, in my opinion. He's still good, but he just hasn't been as great as he has been. But then after that, you can't forget Darrell Jackson, who was kind of in a Tez Walker was the North Carolina wide receiver, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the same waiver situation, except his got approved mid-year. Darrell Jackson's did not. And because of the whole rule where it's like semester-based and all that kind of stuff, he's eligible for this game. And I've seen him in practice. He is very, very good. And I'm expecting
and probably fully healthy too.
Yeah. Oh, easily. he hasn't played a game. But
there's your secret weapon.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's where you're going to see this get tested, is in that interior line. And I haven't even brought up Braden Fisk yet. We just got third team All-American AP third team All-American. This defensive line has got some depth, and it's good.
Now, I will say this too. I think offensively, right? I think it's stopping, the run game. I feel like those guys, like you said, I think have a decent shot to stop run game.
Yeah.
To some degree, I think everybody's had their vulnerabilities as well. Is the secondary with portal additions and stuff. I don't know how Florida State handles business. I don't want to think I do, but a lot of like for Georgia, right? I think Georgia's at now 13 portal entries, and I don't know if they're going to be playing or not. Right? So Georgia from that standpoint is getting tested on their depth too. So with that being said, I'm expecting a lot of youth to play.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say that's going to benefit Georgia is our youth plays a lot. So I think, when it comes to depth, right, that we're kind of built for this at this point.
Yeah.
But it's just wild to think in the first week of the portal, you're looking at 13 opt-outs, or not opt-outs, but portal entries. It's to some degree, you kind of question the depth and you start to get concerned about it. But Andrew Weichler has a good comment here. It says Florida State and Georgia last Orange Bowl were both wins against Michigan.
I thought of that while you were saying it. I just didn't. But ours came against Michigan, I think, when Dalvin Cook was back on the team, if I remember right.
Okay. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I know. Yeah. Well, I remember ours. I didn't remember that one. That's good. Good comment there from Andrew. Speaking of portal entries, how is Florida State handling that? Have y'all been hit pretty hard or?
Not a whole lot. I'm going to look at I can't remember the names straight off the top of my head, but it hasn't been. There's been a few that have been like, oh, that hurts, but not a whole lot. There just hasn't been anything super huge. I'm pulling up the list.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with us, like I said, 13. It's just a lot of it too. It's not like pure starters either.
Yeah, that's what ours is like. It's someone who's mainly people who have like rotated in or didn't play at all. Mm-hmm. Probably the biggest one right now is Bless Harris. He was a good offensive lineman. He was in and out. I mean, we rotate our offensive line too, which is weird that it sounds that way because you want the offensive line to play as a unit, but Florida State rotates it in and out a good amount. Bless Harris has been pretty good. He just a little banged up here and there and just didn't get as much playing time as normal, I guess the best way to say it. But he entered the portal. Again, I mentioned Patrick Payton before.
Yeah.
We're in limbo there. So we don't really know. But it's other than that, nothing really huge. Marqueston Douglas, tight end, big guy who you can disguise as a left tackle and have a throw a pass to. So that kind of hurts. But other than that, nothing huge.
Yeah, I think a lot of ours is the same. We actually just had another offensive lineman hit the portal tonight. We've been hit pretty hard with offensive line, offensive line, a little bit of the defensive line, a couple receivers too. You're right. Like, I think for us losing Austin Blasky to the portal is probably my most important one, just on the fact that he's that Swiss Army knife along the line. I mean, I just think Georgia's kind of built themselves on the offensive line to withstand things like this. Obviously, you don't really want to see that many guys hit the portal, and you ain't even seen draft declarations yet. but no. So I think looking ahead to this game, from a fan's perspective, I know we've talked a little bit about it, but in regards to ticket prices and stuff like that and actually going, I would assume Georgia fans are going to travel well anyway, but I'm assuming Florida State will do the same.
Yep. Got to keep in mind, we got a lot of people who live down there in South Florida too.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, the fun part is we get to show Miami how to fill a stadium.
Exactly.
Even if it's in one of those bowl games, you know what I mean? But no, I think I want to ask your opinion on this too. And I know this is a little bit off topic from the Orange Bowl, but with Florida being as down as they are, and I feel like Florida State is picking apart just the same as we are, their recruiting class and their team. What are you seeing, in regards to Florida, since they're kind of a common enemy, if you will? I want to get your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on the state of the Florida program? I have mine. I can tell you if you want me to hear it or if you want to hear it. But what are your thoughts on that state of the program right now? I feel like they got to get rid of Napier, though.
My thing with it is I feel like you do have to get rid of Napier, but at the same time, you also have to stick to one guy, right? It's a weird middle area right now for them. Now, if Napier goes 5-7 again next year, there's no way they're keeping him.
Have you saw their schedule?
Oh, I have.
Okay.
It's bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's rough. I mean, obviously they get Florida State and Miami.
Yep.
And then
UCF.
I think,
they got all the Florida schools now.
They got all the Florida schools. Obviously Georgia. It is it's a gauntlet. I know Wednesday night, our SEC schedules are getting released in regards to like
timing.
Like what weeks and stuff, because Georgia's was leaked. So for us, we already know our schedule.
Yeah.
Like who's playing what week and stuff. And so obviously I think we'll find out Wednesday night what that looks like. But when it comes to this too, I think in the ACC, I want to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of the perception for the ACC is just it's a terrible conference, and I think partially due to the Clemson fall off, right? But even then, when Clemson was doing their thing, we always kind of just, oh man, ACC is not good, right? And I think it's to some degree it's top heavy, right? SEC is somewhat top heavy. It's just a matter of finding that depth or gaps in between. But it's interesting too. Is like you had Duke, you had all these other games. For your opinion, what did this season for you kind of look like, and what did you take away from this team throughout the season? And what can you take from that into this bowl game?
Yeah, so I think at the time there were a lot of big games, right? Like Duke was ranked, they fell off. That's not our fault. Duke was ranked, it was good, great game, great, really fun atmosphere. By the way, it was awesome. But in general, it was like the ACC started off strong. Like you had overall in the year, we went 6-4 against the SEC, which isn't normal. Well, 2 of those wins were Florida State, but it seemed to start off good and then kind of fall off a cliff, right? Like you had Miami was ranked, UNC was ranked, Florida State was ranked, and they all just disappeared. Miami's happened because they didn't take a knee, but
it's their own doing too.
It is, but like it felt like it fell off a cliff. And Louisville too. Louisville beats Kentucky. That win looks a whole lot better than it did when it happened. Like It's just weird. I think it's pretty obvious Florida State's going to leave soon. Personally, I've been saying 2025. That's nothing that I know or anything like that. That's just I know that they had to announce in August if they were going to leave after this year. So they can't leave after this year. So I feel like it's going to come next year, especially after the whole college football playoff thing. I think they really don't have a choice. They already didn't have a choice because of the money. And now that it's already affecting them, they don't have a choice. They have to do it now.
Is it is it bad for me to believe that what we saw in the selection for the playoffs rendered the ACC as a conference irrelevant?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I didn't want to think that too prematurely, but it just felt that way because the fact that you, like I said, perfect regular season and conference champion, and you get left out over one loss or two one-loss teams, right? Like, what does that make? What's the possibilities? How do you get out of the conference, and what are the loopholes that you're seeing? I guess.
No clue. They've gone on before and said that there's got to be a way for them to get out. I think there's some way. I don't know what it is. At this point, I lean the Big Ten just because I think Florida State's done with ESPN and the SEC.
I can see that.
So it's like you don't want to be associated with that anymore. It's my opinion on it, or at least like the feel through the fan base. It used to be like everyone wanted to go to the SEC. Now it's Big Ten, which is surprising. I don't like Big Ten football. I think it's boring. But
I'm with you.
Like I'd rather go to for the football. I'd rather go to the SEC. But for
other sports,
political stuff and ESPN, and I'd rather go to the Big Ten.
Yeah. See, I think the interesting thing to me is this too. See, like being a Georgia fan, man, we had to deal with years upon years of Gary Danielson. So if you join the Big Ten, brace yourself. All right, brace yourself. I don't know if you watch SEC on CBS, but if you have, Yeah. I'm just gonna let you know. It's interesting too because you brought the politics up. I don't want to go talk politics on this, but it is definitely financial driven, right?
Yep.
The realignment and stuff.
100%.
So if Florida State's to leave, right? I would assume you have to have at least one other person to come with. Yep. Is that accurate?
Which is probably Clemson. I
can see that. So I could see Clemson going to the Big Ten just because it's Clemson. I could definitely see that because logically speaking, you're in the same conference. If you move to SEC, you're in the same conference as Florida.
Yep.
And you would rather compete against, right? If you were to join the same conference, I'm sure you're probably fine with competing against Miami in the same conference, more so than Florida. But at the same time, Clemson and South Carolina, same situation too. But no, I think that the conference realignment is something that a lot of people are, I wouldn't say forgetting about, because there's I think the recency between us, like we know the playoff situation. Yep. So like I think we're focused on that. But 2024, just to start, is going to be one of those situations where you're going to have an off season, if you will, a lot to talk about. Right, because Texas, Oklahoma coming in, you've got Washington, Oregon, right? You got all this conference realignment premature because we know it's not done.
Yep.
Right, Matt? We know it's not done. Andrew brings up a good question here. Let me pull it up. He says, "What's your take on the ACC having a winning record versus the SEC despite being top heavy?" Well, for what it's worth, you can't take. I hope y'all understand this. You can't take away regular season losses, regardless of what you look like. I will say the SEC as a whole, for what it's worth, after the start of the year, we got a lot better.
I'll agree with that.
I think you look at Jalen Milroe. We'll start with Alabama because they're the SEC champion. Yep. Week 2, week 3, there was some serious questions when they benched him for Buckner at South Florida.
Yeah, they were tied. What was it, 3-3?
Oh, that was the ugliest game I've ever seen under Nick Saban. It was ugly. But no, then you sit there and you look at Milroe, and the defense comes up and does her thing, and it starts to look like the Bama fold. Right, Georgia, for what it's worth, we didn't look as flashy at times, stayed dominant. Again, to that credit, you sit there, you deal with the schedule. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm going to have to give the ACC some credit too. You look at a Georgia Tech team, right? Georgia Tech finished 4th in the conference.
Yeah, they were
Buster Faulkner. Yeah, Buster Faulkner comes from Georgia and just starts lighting shit up. It's like, okay, But then you had teams that I love doing this too because you're about to see me have some fun here. Tennessee, man. Tennessee was all hype. They loved it. They thought Joe Milton was going to be the next damn Messiah, apparently at times.
Hey, Nico's next year. Nico's going to sign next year.
Same shit, different year. But no. So Andrew, to your point, listen, you have to give ACC credit for winning those games, right? I mean, hell, Florida State, for what it's worth, handled LSU. Now, at the same time, you look through the regular season and the full body of work, we now know that they had no defense.
Nope.
But that's not y'all's fault. That is not y'all. Yeah, I was going to say that's not y'all's fault, though, right? Y'all just capitalize on it. But listen, Andrew, Georgia did their part, okay, and I'm not one of these SEC homers. I can't stand that shit. It's Georgia versus everybody. What people do is what they do. Georgia did their business. I'm standing on that. But I think that is 100%. I think I do think that's a good question though. I mean, a lot of people were saying that the SEC was down, myself included. It just didn't feel right.
It did at the beginning of the year. I remember seeing people doing jokes of like what was the best non-conference win was over K-State at one point.
Yeah, it was bad. I think you look at by the end of the year though, right? Missouri. I thought Missouri was a surprise SEC team.
They were surprised everyone. I mean, they were good.
Well, Schrader, man.
Yeah.
Like we tried to – I love this. We tried to tell the Florida fans, guys, Schrader is dirty. He's dirty. Tennessee fans found out the hard way too. But no, when you look at – you got teams that, again, it's a mixture of disappointments and, right, over performances, right, compared to expectations. Missouri was one. South Carolina faltered pretty bad, right? Like a lot of people had them going 7-8 wins and they just shit the bed, right?
Yep.
Now, some we knew, Florida we knew was going to be bad, and I called it perfectly, so I'll take that for what it's worth too, right? But no, I mean ACC handled business too, but again, I think when you look at it, right, it was weird. Clemson being down a little bit too. Like I thought
they came back at the end of the year. They came back at the end of the year.
Well, damn, they had to buy stock apparently.
Yeah.
Had to
After the Notre Dame one.
Had to do the dividend split. You know what I mean? But a lot too much stock talk. But yeah, no, but it was just a weird year in college football overall, Matt. I do think that too.
It was the first year that normally going into Selection Sunday, it's about to happen, right? Like you got a pretty clear 4 teams, maybe a little bit flip-flopped of the seeding, but what's going to happen. This was the first year that it didn't work itself out.
Yeah, you didn't really know at all.
Yeah.
I mean, well, ESPN did, but I digress. But no, I think to that point though, man, like you always get used to having chaos unfold, right? Pac-12 cannibalizes itself. Didn't happen this year, right? Did not happen this year, right? Didn't happen.
Washington tried to make it happen multiple times.
God almighty, Washington. Oregon fooled me twice. Because I was sitting there thinking about it. You probably get this too.
Yeah.
Oregon looked like garbage, man. Like just struggle wins. Again, this year I think it was a perfect year to a win is a win. But just struggle win after struggle win and then you just dominate. And I'm like, really? That's how you feel? That's how you feel about that? But yeah, no, I think Florida State did good to capitalize on it. I do want to ask you about some recruiting, man. So right now you got KJ Bolden.
Yep.
Right.
Who's been talking to Kirby still, clearly.
Well, Kirby will never cut bridges there, but I mean, I think a lot of the smoke though for KJ is, a lot of the smoke is on Auburn right now.
Yep.
I think he stays.
I would be surprised if he left, is my opinion on it, honestly.
I think Auburn, listen, I don't know if you know Auburn like this, but I'm tell you right now, Matt, with Hugh Freeze there and NIL being a thing, boy, that checkbook is opened up.
Oh, yeah.
You can see with the receivers they brought in. But no, I think KJ would fit better in there. I think he would play good at Georgia, but ultimately I think he stays at Florida State. Are you familiar? I want to get your thoughts on this. There's a guy up here, 2026 kid, Kendra Harrison.
Yes, I actually am familiar with him.
Yeah,
Florida State likes him a lot, and I've heard he likes Florida State.
Yeah, he does. No, I talked to him a lot. So he just come off of a offensive MVP performance in the state title game.
Okay.
So 2A title up here in regional. And you sit there, you look at it, man. It's one of these things. If you've watched him play football, dude's a monster, nightmare, 6'7", legit 6'7", almost 6'8". I know he feels good about Florida State. I know he likes Georgia too. Got a bunch of offers. To me, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you know enough about him to know that like he's a 5-star basketball player too?
Yeah.
Y'all have offered him, right, for basketball? Do you keep up with basketball?
Both. I believe both. Our basketball team needs it. I can tell you that.
If you're listening on this, I'm telling you right now, there's a reason why he's a top 10 kid right now. Kid is an absolute
really good.
He's good. He's good. I sat down with him and talked to him, man. The fun part is, I don't know if you know this, but Darnell was his favorite player.
Oh wow.
Yeah, okay. That was fun to know. But no, I noticed Florida State seems to be there. But y'all, with Norvell there, y'all are starting to become that little thorn, and it's okay. Right? It's recruiting. You're starting to pick into that thorn in Georgia's side, getting them South Georgia kids. Landon Thomas. Yep, Landon Thomas is one of them. But KJ Bolden, another one.
Yep.
Oh man. But in regards to that, I want to talk about the recruits coming in early enrollees, because that's how this works. Practices matter, right? Gets them in. Y'all have a lot of y'all's recruiting class early enrolling too?
As of now, a good amount. Like I know Luke Cromenhawk, our quarterback, is expected, who's also Georgia kid, Savannah.
Yeah, that boy's good. That boy's good.
Oh, I've seen him throw a few times. It's fun to watch. Really fun.
Was he at the Elite 11 too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Charles Lester's early enrolling. I think BJ Gibson.
You got a good DB Hall. Yep.
And I mean KJ I think is expected to, isn't he? I'd have to look back, but I feel like he is.
I think so. I'm not too sure. I kind of let go of it. I know a lot of Georgia fans just are like, "Oh man, we're gonna get KJ," and I'm like, "Go for it."
Yeah.
I'm gonna sip my tea and sit back, but no, I think you know how important this is. But if you're not familiar, right, the early enrollees get to participate, right, to some degree in these bowl practices,
which is a new thing for Florida State, by the way. I mean, we hadn't been bowling so long that like most fans didn't realize this anymore.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I'll speak on my behalf because it's from knowledge, but I don't think people truly understand how beneficial that is for your future development too. Because for Georgia specifically, right, we've had a lot of our guys come in early enrollee and have significant impacts as freshmen, right? That matters, right? Rather than coming in after the spring. You can. I mean, most of the guys will do scout team, right? And I'll use this as an example. I had Tate Ratledge and Rylan Godey on, and they were talking about prepping for the national title game. And TCU, for what it's worth, TCU's linebackers flew heavy. They flew heavy, right? They were instant downfield. Well, you're looking at guys like CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson, which are two names that I think Matt, Florida State fans will probably see a lot of in this game. I'm just going to let y'all know. But this is why it matters, right? Early enrollees, and you're seeing these guys doing things that they shouldn't be doing as freshmen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
CJ Allen did a B gap, jump back into A gap, and it just confused the hell out of Tate. It was like, you're not supposed to know that. But again, so from a Florida State perspective, you said it's been a while since y'all been bowling like that. So if you're a fan listening, right, understand the importance of these bowl practices too. That's also extra practices for y'all guys that are on the team currently.
Yep.
And I think that matters too moving forward. Do you see? So I want to ask your thoughts too. What do you think this game is going to look like? Do you think it'll be a shootout? Do you think it'll be a what are your early feelings about it? Obviously, we'll know more, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be a shootout. I mean, this defense right now looks pretty put together of like whether opt-outs or not, right? I mean, nothing's happened, but if this defense stays together, that's tough, and that's going to be tough for both teams. And Georgia's defense is obviously known for being amazing. I mean, this could end up like the Louisville game, and nobody wants to watch it on TV just because it gets boring. But I mean, I don't know. If you like football, you should like defense.
See, I want to see how you feel about this. Georgia's defense is not what it is normally.
Yeah.
When compared to the past 2 years, which is a dangerous comparison to make.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is definitely not it. But I do think Georgia has issues at times getting to the quarterback. Not saying we can't, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, setting the edge is important, and Georgia's having a rough time at times as well. You talked about, Rodemaker, I think it is his backup. You talked about him kind of being able to run. I think that's something that you might see Florida State try to take advantage of. Maybe. And this is just me third partying on this. And it's because of Georgia's inaptitude to set the edge properly. Yeah. I think Florida State could have some success there if they do that. But at the same time, I do think it'll be interesting to see if Schumann and Kirby throw out some kind of, what's the best word to say it? We do a lot of simulated pressures and simulated blitzes too.
Okay.
Very complex stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So my thought is, I think this game, it'll be early, right? It's kind of an early game where y'all's defense can make some stops. But I do think us having Carson, us having Kendall and Dejan, that's going to help. That's really going to help. I typically we look at bowl games as like future spring game rosters, but I don't see that this year. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Florida State's defense can do to stop the efficiency. I think y'all secondary can make a couple stops. I do just wonder if y'all have the depth. I guess there's a lot of me just not being able to watch enough sample size for Florida State, but at the same time, it also wouldn't surprise me, Matt, if y'all go out there and cause us some problems, even with a backup quarterback. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy as people would think, I think.
I mean, and like I said before, Tate's main problem has been he just waits too long. So if he's going to be given time, he's going to take it, and then that's when he gets dangerous, right? Like, and I also said he's not known for running. This year, you only have like one play of him running, and that was when the Florida players targeted him and put him out for the
AC that was a cheap shot too, man.
Oh yeah,
that's a cheap shot too. I watched it.
He's fast, man. I'm telling you right now, he's fast.
No, he looked athletic until it's just one of those things. It's hard to really say. You don't get the sample size because of what happened. But like you kind of watch it, like it's not Jordan Travis, but at the same time, it's still mobile. Like I think that's something. It's not like even Carson Beck. A lot of people think Carson Beck's like a gargoyle, but he's not. So I think that's something interesting to note. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I think I have to go back and watch some tape more as time goes on. But again, it's just so hard to say with these bowl games. But yeah, I think other than that, I'm looking forward to this game.
So right now, I am with the opt out with no opt outs right now. Just Johnny, whatever. It's looking fun
because I can see. My thing is this: if barring things don't change, right? We know it will, but as it stands right now, this is why we call it way too early. I do think Keon Coleman will give us some problems.
He can give anyone problems.
No, 100%. 100%. He did it all year. No, I completely agree. I think Johnny Wilson, though, adds that size dynamic, though, man.
That was his advantage. His hands were never great.
That's the thing. Like that was the issue, too. I was about to say, it's like, to be that big, like, he just – the inconsistency with the hand situation.
That was the only issue with him. His route running got better. It was just – but it did get better throughout the year. He was catching more balls, right? Like, I mean, you saw it. He became Tate and the backup's favorite targets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he really did. It wasn't as much Keon. It was all him.
Yeah. I want to ask your opinion on this. Hold on one second. Let's see. So, Andrew says, best defensive line matchup of the year, barring any opt-outs. I think he's onto something.
From the Florida State side, I don't know much about the Georgia defensive line, but from the Florida State side, especially with I told you about Darrell Jackson coming in, that's going to be huge.
I think this is where it's going to be interesting for us because some of the depth we're losing, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, giving the time to heal is key here too, for Georgia side, because there's a couple guys that can take this time to get healed up. But I think with Warren, Logue, and Stackhouse, I left it. So SEC championship game, a super sour taste in my mouth after that game. Very, very sour taste in my mouth. But when you've got Michael and you've got you younger guys like Kristen Miller, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, I think those guys can have matchups. But at the same time, I think your offensive line isn't nearly as big as Alabama's. I don't know if you paid attention to Alabama, but they had some they had some cows.
Yeah. Our
They
offensive
were
line hasn't
big.
been as good as we expected. I'll tell you that.
Well, no. I was just saying, like, pure size. These dudes
Yeah.
were gigantic. And on SEC championship, they just bullied Stackhouse and Logan. Stackhouse is like 320 in his own right.
Jeez.
Got combo blocked back to like 10 yards back. It was rough. But
Can we all agree that the how much did the Florida defensive lineman weigh? It's like 460.
Jesus Christ, dude! Like,
can we all agree it's unhealthy?
no, that's 100% unhealthy, dude.
Yeah.
Like I understand. Listen, I've seen some big guys.
Yeah.
Some of our biggest guys were 340, 350, right? But like, dude, he was serious over 400, wasn't he?
I think it was 469 if I remember right.
Bro, this shit reminded me of Jared Lorenzen.
Yeah, it was a big boy.
Not the problem. I mean, he says he doesn't get reset too much, but
No.
dude, like, but I'm with you. That is just unhealthy.
Yeah.
What? I want to maybe ask one last question here. What matchup? Or ask maybe the last couple. What matchup are you looking forward to the most between this game, as it stands now?
As it stands now,
because we don't know. We're not going to predict anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to be wrong. Don't want to be wrong. So we're taking for what it's worth.
I think it'll be interesting to see if Florida State can establish a run against this defense, because that's been important. With a backup quarterback, it's been more important than ever, and it's been tough. Like against Louisville, I mean, I said this when people were texting me and complaining during the Louisville game. It was like, "Oh, it's boring. What's going on?" I was like, "Well, you got a third string quarterback in going against a top 10 rush defense. That takes away pretty much all offense possible, right?" So it'll be interesting to see if this offensive line could step up a little bit. I mentioned earlier they got some portal departures there, and that's probably the most depleted portal-wise so far. So that'll be very interesting to watch. I am also I guess in general, I'll say the trenches on both sides, because I'm very excited to see this defensive line against Georgia as well.
I think it'll be our secondary versus y'all's receivers.
Okay.
With the portal entries that we have, it's going to open up situations where you have, if Lassiter plays, I don't even know if I think Lassiter might play.
Okay.
If Lassiter plays, I want to see him on Keon. I think that would be dynamic as shit to watch for me. It really would. It would be real fun to watch. But considering, I want to see Dalen Everett, and from a Georgia perspective, that's been the bane to this. What feels like the bane to the defense all year. Just rough, getting beat. Right, he was the go-to guy when other teams were scoring it something like right. They just picked on him. Right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you want to see him get better. You want to see him develop and grow. Right. So I want to see him have a good game. But at the same time, I think with the portal situation, I think you're going to see guys like A.J. Harris or Daniel Harris, getting some run. Right, Kyron Jones is another name. I think we're going to see some of that right there. So I want to see some of these young DBs, get run and see what they're about, right? Because I think y'all can match us physically, right? From a physicality standpoint.
Yeah.
If you come out and want it, right? I think that's the key. If both teams want to come out and want it, I think it's going to be fun.
That's the key for both teams too.
100%. 100%.
Each team could easily quit on this game because of where your goals were. Easily.
Yeah. Obviously the letdown of this is, it's just rough.
Yeah.
But I do think it does have the seeds are there to be planted to have a good game. Right. We'll see what happens as we move forward with that. But again, right, we don't know right now. It's way too early, but I do think it's fun to see, right?
Yeah.
See how things play out. Matt, I want to thank you again, man, for coming on.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Where can people find you if you're a Georgia fan or you're a Florida State fan and you stumble upon this? Where can they find your work, man?
Yeah, so obviously warchant.com. That's where all my recruiting and stuff content is, but also on Twitter. I try to be active on Twitter. Is at LaSerre Matt, so just flip my two names. There
you go. Matt, it's a pleasure, man.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no doubt, 100%. Needed that conversation. Not a team we see often. No. So I think it was worth having the discussion.
Hey, you can call it the Kirby Bowl because he was a GA here.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, you can call it about anything.
Yeah.
Right? With that being said, though, folks, we're gonna wrap this thing up. With that, let's see. Yeah, make sure to like, follow, subscribe. Follow Matt on his socials. You heard him there. Warchant.com. If you're a Nole fan, make sure to go follow that. That's the On3 affiliate. If for anybody curious. I think we're going to wrap it up here, Matt. Again, awesome. I think it was fun to talk about it.
Yep,
and we're going to have a great night. And looking forward to this matchup, man, on the 30th.
I am. I'm excited to get to the casino 15 minutes away, too.
I see what you're doing there. Well, it's dangerous. With that being said, I'm Robert Reynolds. This is the DGD Podcast. We will catch y'all next time.